The message appeared at 3:47 a.m. 7 words that would unravel everything Sarah thought she knew about her apartment. 7 words typed by someone who had been dead for 3 years. And worst of all, they knew her schedule, her routine, where she kept the spare key. This is the story Reddit tried to delete multiple times. And after you hear what happened in apartment 414, you'll understand why. Let's begin. On November 14, 2021, a Reddit user posted to our /letsnotmeet under a throwaway account that has since been deleted. The post was titled, "My dead roommate is still logged into our smart home system." It stayed up for exactly 6 hours before being removed by moderators. Not for breaking rules, but because, according to the mod note, the content describes an ongoing investigation and poses a potential safety risk. Sarah Chen, not her real name, but the one she chose when she finally agreed to share her story, was a 29-year-old graphic designer living in Seattle's Capitol Hill neighborhood. Apartment 414. A renovated industrial building with exposed brick, high ceilings, and those large windows that always seem romantic in the daytime but become something else entirely after dark. She'd moved in 18 months earlier with her roommate, Jessica Torres. They weren't close friends. Just 2 professionals who found each other on a housing group and split the rent on a place neither could afford alone. The arrangement was simple, pleasant, forgettable. Until March 8, 2020. That was the night Jessica died. The official report called it an accidental overdose. Prescription medication mixed with alcohol. Jessica was found in her bedroom by Sarah when she came home from a weekend trip. The scene was clean, peaceful, even. Jessica lying on her bed, still dressed, as if she'd simply decided to rest and never woke up. No signs of struggle. No forced entry. The medical examiner's report was straightforward. The police were sympathetic but brief. These things happen, they said. Especially in a city where loneliness wears 1,000 different faces. Sarah grieved in the way people grieve for acquaintances, with guilt and distance and a vague sense that she should have known something was wrong. She moved into a smaller studio 2 months later. Left the memories and the rent behind. Started over. Or so she thought. The apartment had been what real estate agents call smart home ready. Integrated systems. Voice-activated lights. A digital thermostat you could control from your phone. A security camera in the hallway. Door locks that sent you notifications. The kind of technology that promises convenience and delivers surveillance. Jessica had set most of it up. She worked in tech, something involving cloud architecture that Sarah never fully understood. She was the one who installed the apps, created the shared accounts, programmed the routines. Sarah just enjoyed being able to tell Alexa to dim the lights. After Jessica's death, Sarah never thought to change the passwords or remove Jessica's access. Why would she? The accounts were shared. And besides, it felt wrong somehow. Like erasing her. But Jessica's phone had been returned to her family. Her laptop, gone. Her bedroom, cleaned out and painted over by the new tenant who moved in 6 weeks after her death. Every digital trace should have gone dark. It didn't. The first notification came on October 29, 2021. 1:43 a.m. Sarah was lying in bed in her new studio apartment, scrolling through her phone with that particular insomnia that comes from too much screen time and not enough meaning. The notification banner appeared at the top of her screen. Front door unlocked by Jessica T. She stared at it. Read it twice. 3 times. Her brain performed the necessary calculations. Jessica was dead. Had been for over a year and a half. This was obviously a glitch. Old permissions. A ghost in the machine, the digital kind, nothing supernatural. Technology was full of these quirks. She opened the smart home app. The log showed, front door unlocked, 1:43 a.m., user, Jessica T. But there was no front door anymore. Not for Sarah. She'd moved. The apartment on Capitol Hill had new tenants. She'd returned her keys 8 months ago. She took a screenshot, an instinct she'd later be grateful for, and went back to sleep, uneasily, but convinced it was just a software error. Phantom data from a deleted timeline. The second notification came 3 nights later. 2:14 a.m. Living room lights turned on by Jessica T. This time, Sarah sat up in bed. Her studio apartment was dark except for the blue glow of her phone. She went to the app again. This time, she navigated to the device history. The pattern was there if you knew to look for it. October 29th, 1:43 a.m. Front door unlocked. October 31, 11:56 p.m. Thermostat set to 68 degrees. November 1, 2:14 a.m. Living room lights on. November 1, 2:31 a.m. Bedroom door lock engaged. Her old apartment. The one she no longer lived in. The one where Jessica had died. Someone was still accessing the system. Someone using Jessica's account. Sarah's hands were shaking now. She did what anyone would do. She sent a text to the building manager, asking for the contact information of the current tenants in 414. She needed to know if they were experiencing something, a security issue, maybe someone who'd stolen Jessica's old credentials. The building manager responded the next morning. Sympathetic. Confused. Hi Sarah, apartment 414 is currently vacant. Has been since September. We're doing renovations before we list it again. Nobody should be accessing it. Sound, breath-catching, digital distortion creeping in. Nobody should be accessing it. Sarah screenshotted everything. Every notification. Every log entry. And then she did what people in 2021 do when the real world stops making sense. She turned to the internet. She posted her story to Reddit. The Reddit post went up on November 3rd at around 11 p.m. She debated for hours whether to share it. Whether it made her sound paranoid or attention-seeking. But the notifications kept coming, and she needed someone to tell her she wasn't losing her mind. The responses were immediate. Most were sympathetic. Some suggested technical explanations, cloud backup glitches, cached credentials, automated routines still running on a schedule. A few users pointed out that if the apartment was vacant, maybe workers doing the renovation had triggered motion sensors. Logical. Grounded. But then, buried in the thread, was a comment from a user named u/Capitol Hill native. Wait. You said apartment 414 in Capitol Hill. The building on Pine Street with the green awning? My friend lived in 418. She said some weird stuff was happening in the building around that time. People hearing footsteps in vacant units. Doors opening. She moved out last summer. Sarah's stomach dropped. She responded immediately, asking for more details. The user replied, "I'll DM you. Don't want to post publicly. Some of this stuff is genuinely unsettling." The DM conversation lasted 2 hours. Capitol Hill native, real name unshared, but she went by M, described a pattern of disturbances in the building that had started shortly after Jessica's death and escalated over the following year. Tenants reported hearing sounds from 414 even when it was empty. Not construction sounds. Footsteps. The low murmur of a voice. One resident swore they'd seen the lights turning on and off through the window at odd hours, 3 a.m., 4 a.m., when no one should have been inside. Building management dismissed it as electrical issues or tenant paranoia. But turnover was high. People didn't stay long. And then M shared something that made Sarah's hands go numb. One of the maintenance guys told my friend he refused to go into 414 alone anymore. He said the smart thermostat kept changing the temperature to 58 degrees, no matter how many times he reset it. And once, he swore he saw the bedroom door lock itself from the inside while he was standing in the hallway. 58 degrees. Sarah opened her own thermostat history. Scrolled back. November 1st, October 29th, October 15th. Every single activity logged under Jessica's name had set the temperature to exactly 58 degrees. Sound, rising tension, a low-frequency hum. Jessica's bedroom had always been cold. She kept the thermostat low, even in winter. Said she couldn't sleep if it was too warm. 58 degrees. Every night. Sarah took a shaking breath and typed back, "What happened to the maintenance guy?" The reply came 2 minutes later. "He quit. Wouldn't say why. But my friend saw him in the lobby one night, and he looked like he'd seen something he couldn't explain. Said he told management that apartment needed to be sealed off. They ignored him." Sarah knew what she had to do next. She needed to go back. November 5th, 9:30 p.m. The building stood exactly as she remembered it. Brick facade. Green awning darkened by rain. The lobby lights glowed amber through the glass doors. She'd texted the building manager earlier, claiming she'd left something behind and needed to retrieve it. He'd been accommodating, left her a spare key at the front desk with the night concierge. The concierge was a young man she didn't recognize. New hire. He handed her the key without much interest and went back to his phone. Sarah took the elevator to the 4th floor. The hallway was silent. Fluorescent lights humming overhead. The carpet, slightly worn, muffling her footsteps. She passed 412, then 413, and then she stood in front of 414. The apartment was hollow. Furniture gone. The walls patched but not yet repainted. Drop cloths covered the floor. The smell of joint compound and dust hung in the air. And it was cold. Not just cool. Cold. The kind of cold that settles into your bones and doesn't leave. Sarah pulled out her phone and opened the smart home app. According to the log, the last activity had been 20 minutes ago. 8:47 p.m., thermostat set to 58 degrees, user, Jessica T. She walked slowly through the living room. Her footsteps echoed. The exposed brick looked darker in the dim work lights. Shadows pooled in the corners. She moved toward the bedroom. Jessica's bedroom. The door was closed. Sarah reached for the handle, and her phone buzzed in her hand. A new notification. Bedroom door locked by Jessica T, 9:34 p.m. Her hand froze on the handle. She tried to turn it. Locked. From the inside. Sarah stepped back. Her mind raced. This was impossible. The apartment was empty. The smart lock was installed on the inside of the door. There was no way to engage it unless someone was in the room. She knocked. Softly at first. Then harder. Hello? Is someone in there? Nothing. She pressed her ear to the door. And she heard it. Not her own. Slower. Deeper. The sound of someone standing just on the other side of the door. Waiting. Sarah didn't wait. She ran. Down the hallway. Into the elevator. Through the lobby. The concierge looked up, startled, as she shoved the key across the desk and pushed through the front doors into the rain. She didn't stop until she was 2 blocks away, lungs burning, rain soaking through her jacket. Back in her studio, door locked and deadbolt, she did the only thing she could think of. She called the police. The officers were polite. Professional. They took her statement. Checked the apartment. Found nothing. No signs of forced entry. No one inside. The bedroom door, they said, was unlocked when they arrived. Probably a malfunction with the smart lock. Old system. These things happen. They suggested she change her passwords. Contact the building's IT support. Maybe talk to someone if the stress was getting to her. They didn't say it directly, but Sarah heard it in their tone. You're seeing things that aren't there. But she had the logs. The screenshots. The timestamps. She contacted the smart home company's customer support. After 3 transfers and 40 minutes on hold, a technician reviewed her account. Ma'am, I'm showing that the account under the name Jessica Torres was deactivated on March 15, 2020. There's been no activity since. That's impossible. I have the logs right here. Can you send me a screenshot? She did. The line went quiet for a long moment. Ma'am, this is unusual. These logs aren't appearing in our system. What you're seeing on your app, it's not matching our database. It's like a local cache. Or something running parallel. What does that mean? I don't know. I'm going to escalate this to our security team. Sarah posted an update to Reddit. Explained what had happened. The breathing behind the door. The police report. The company's non-response. The thread exploded. Hundreds of comments. Some calling it fake. Others sharing their own stories of digital hauntings, glitches that felt too intentional, AI assistants that responded to questions no one had asked. But one comment stood out. From a user named u/sysadmin_SeattlePD. I work in digital forensics. What you're describing sounds like someone cloned her device. If they had access to her phone or laptop before it was wiped, they could have mirrored her credentials and are now accessing the system remotely, using her profile as a mask. This isn't paranormal. This is someone playing a very sick game. The comment included a link to a tutorial on device mirroring. How easy it was. How invisible it could be. Sarah read it 3 times. Someone cloned her device. Someone who had access to Jessica's phone before her family reclaimed it. Someone who knew the apartment. Who knew the routines. Who knew about the smart home system? Someone who wanted Sarah to know they were still there. Sound, realization, low dread chord. She went back through the logs with new eyes. Looked at the timing. The patterns. The activity always happened late at night. Between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. And the locations, front door, bedroom, thermostat, weren't random. They traced Jessica's nightly routine. Come home. Lock the bedroom door. Turn down the thermostat. Go to sleep. Someone was recreating Jessica's life. On loop. Every night. But why? Sarah called M, the Reddit user who'd reached out. They met at a coffee shop on a gray November afternoon, rain streaking the windows. M was younger than Sarah expected. Mid-20s. Nervous energy. She pulled out her phone and showed Sarah something she hadn't posted publicly. Security footage. Grainy. Time-stamped October 2020. It showed the hallway outside apartment 414. 3:17 a.m. A figure standing in front of the door. Hoodie pulled up. Face obscured. Holding a phone up to the smart lock. The door opened. The figure stepped inside. Building management claimed it was a maintenance contractor, M said quietly. But I checked. No work orders that night. And look. She zoomed in on the figure's hand. On the phone screen. It was glowing. Displaying a smart home app. Jessica's account name visible at the top. Whoever this is, M whispered, they've been inside that apartment dozens of times. And they're still going. Sarah knew she couldn't let this go. Not anymore. If someone was using Jessica's credentials, if someone had been entering the apartment for over a year, there had to be a trail. Evidence. Something the police had missed. She contacted Jessica's younger sister, Monica, who she'd met briefly at the funeral. The conversation was painful. Awkward. But necessary. Monica still had Jessica's belongings. Boxed up in her garage. Hadn't had the heart to go through most of it. They met the following weekend. Opened the boxes together. Clothes. Books. Hard drives. An old laptop the family hadn't known what to do with. Sarah asked if she could take the laptop. See if there was anything on it. Monica agreed, grateful someone else would carry the weight. Sarah brought it to a data recovery specialist, a small shop in the university district run by a guy who asked no questions and charged cash. 2 days later, he called. You need to see this. The laptop's cloud backup had been accessed. Remotely. Multiple times. Long after Jessica's death. Someone had logged into her accounts. Downloaded files. Messages. Photos. Calendar data. And they'd installed a monitoring app. The kind used for employee surveillance or parental controls. It logged keystrokes. Locations. App usage. Whoever installed it had been tracking Jessica. Before she died. The specialist pulled up the installation date, January 14, 2020. Nearly 2 months before Jessica's death. This is spyware, he said flatly. Professional grade. Someone was watching everything she did. Sarah felt the room tilt. The police had ruled Jessica's death an accident. But if someone had been monitoring her, stalking her digitally, watching her patterns. She asked the specialist if he could trace the access logs. Find out where the remote logins were coming from. He worked for another hour, navigating through proxy servers and VPN trails. And then he stopped. Went very still. This is weird. What? The most recent login. 2 days ago. It's coming from an IP address registered to a building on Capitol Hill. He turned the screen toward her. The address was familiar. It was her old building. Apartment 418. Sound, breath-catching, silence. Ings apartmenta. Or rather, the apartment M's friend had lived in. The one right next to 414. Sarah's hands were shaking as she pulled out her phone and called M. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. She tried again. Nothing. She texted, "We need to talk. Now. It's about 418. The reply came 30 seconds later. Who is this? Sarah stared at the message. Typed back, "It's Sarah. We met last week. You showed me the footage." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. I don't know who you are. I never met anyone named Sarah. Please stop contacting me. Sound, digital distortion intensifies, dread theme. Sarah's stomach dropped. She scrolled back through their message history. The coffee shop. The conversation. The security footage. It was all still there. But M was denying it. She called the building manager. Asked about the tenant in 418. That unit's been vacant since July, he said. We're still looking for the right renter. Why? Who lived there before? A pause. The sound of keys clicking. Looks like a Marcus Holt. Moved out end of June. Didn't leave a forwarding address. Paid the lease termination fee and left. Why? Is something wrong? Marcus Holt. Sarah asked the data specialist to cross-reference the name with Jessica's emails and messages. It took 10 minutes. He found it. Marcus Holt had been Jessica's co-worker. Same tech company. Same department. They'd exchanged dozens of emails. Work-related at first. Then more frequent. Casual. Friendly. And then they stopped. Abruptly. In December 2019. The last message Jessica sent him. Please stop contacting me outside of work. I've asked you 3 times now. If this continues, I'll have to report it to HR. Sarah turned everything over to the police. The laptop. The spyware evidence. The access logs. The security footage. The name. They opened an investigation. Marcus Holt's apartment was searched. He wasn't there. Hadn't been for weeks. But they found equipment. Computers. Hard drives. Cloned devices. Journals filled with timestamps and routines. Jessica's routines. The detective assigned to the case told Sarah they believed Marcus had been obsessed with Jessica. Had installed the spyware to monitor her. Had been planning something. What? They couldn't be sure. But Jessica's death had been ruled accidental, and there wasn't enough evidence to reopen it as a homicide. Sometimes, the detective said quietly, the worst crimes are the ones that look like nothing at all. Marcus Holt was wanted for questioning. But he disappeared. No credit card activity. No phone usage. No trace. The building on Capitol Hill installed new security systems. Changed all the smart locks. Apartment 414 was gutted and renovated. Sarah never went back. But sometimes, late at night, her phone still buzzes. Not the smart home app. That account was deleted. Every credential wiped. But she still gets notifications. From apps she's never installed. Messages from numbers that don't exist. Photos in her cloud storage she never took, images of her apartment, taken from angles she's never stood in. The police say it's residual data. Malware. They've run diagnostics. Found nothing. But Sarah knows. Someone is still watching. Maybe it's Marcus, hidden somewhere, still playing his game. Or maybe it's something else. Something that started as obsession and twisted into something worse. A digital ghost that doesn't need a body anymore. Just code. Just access. Just the knowledge of where you are and how to reach you. Sound, notification chime, distorted, wrong. Sarah doesn't use smart home devices anymore. She keeps her phone off at night. She covers her laptop camera. She checks her locks twice. 3 times. Because the worst horror isn't the one that jumps out at you. It's the one that watches. Waits. And knows exactly when you're alone. Jessica Torres died on March 8, 2020. But according to the server logs, her account is still active. Still logging in. Still watching. And if you're listening to this on a smart device, in a home filled with connected machines that know your schedule, your voice, your routines, maybe you should check who else has access. Before they decide to stop watching. And start knocking. If you've experienced something similar, something that technology can't explain and the police won't investigate, you're not alone. These stories exist in the spaces between the real and the digital, where our lives have become so connected that we've forgotten what it means to truly be alone. Thank you for listening. If this story kept you awake tonight, consider subscribing for more true horror from the darkest corners of the internet. Leave a comment below telling me, have you ever felt watched through your devices? Until next time, keep your doors locked, your passwords changed, and your cameras covered. Because you never know who's on the other side of the screen. Watching. Waiting. Remembering.